Welcome to the Pro Design Builder podcast, the show where professionals and entrepreneurs share their stories, strategies, and secrets to living a beautiful life. I'm Sam, your host, as we dive deep into the world of life experiences and entrepreneurship. Like always, I would like to thank our sponsor for today, the Pro Design Builder, which is a coaching and consulting firm for real estate investors that want to build their first spec home or multifamily project. The Pro Design Builder is not just about building a business, it's about building a vision and building a life by design. As you guys know, my heart is really deep into foster care. It's near and dear to my heart. I've had a number of kids through my home. I've adopted 2 kids. I'm currently fostering 1. And the mission is never over in foster care. So if you ever feel led to give to our initiative, there'll be a link in the Patreon. Feel free to give at any time. So some of the things that we support and some of the things that we are supported with as a foster family. We're attached to what's called a FAM team. The FAM team supports us in many ways. Sometimes it's, twice a month, it's bringing a meal. And it's very helpful for me as the primary cook in the home to not have to worry about all the things that go into preparing a meal. You know how stressful that is. And having that break off, I can spend that more quality time with family. The other thing that is supported is an additional date night, which keeps the family unit strong. And the thing about foster care, what brings the most value to children is having a strong marriage and having a strong unit. So these are the types of things that we hope to support. Also, we hope to purchase beds and cribs for foster and adoptive parents when they make those transitions. These are all things that we are currently supporting. And if you feel led to give, the link will be in the Patreon. Right? So without further ado, I would like to introduce our guest. Anne Marie Thrives is a coach, trainer, speaker, and best-selling author. For over 40 years, she has been empowering women and entrepreneurs towards confidence, well-being, and purpose by helping them from the inside out. Having suffered a spinal and traumatic brain injury, one of her life's quests was to learn how the brain functions affects the body's behavior and lives. So just want to say thank you, Anne, for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here.
So we always like to, when we have people on the show, we always like to start at the beginning. So I'd like to ask you, what were you like as a kid? And then were there early signs of your path?
So I was born in Italy. And when I was 7, my parents moved us here to the U.S. My grandfather's family came earlier, and they went back and forth, but they decided they wanted to be here, so we came. And it was a fun adventure, but it was also very difficult because you're in a whole new culture. You don't know the language. You're being thrown in school. Going from one school to another is one thing. It's got its own set of little, traumas and things you have to navigate through. But being thrown into a brand new school in a brand new country with a whole different language was like another, more stuff to deal with. So,
No, I completely agree with you, because that was my experience. Coming from a third world country to the U.S., there was a lot of things that are significantly different, and that adjustment period was, to say the least, the roughest period of my life. So I get some of the, I fully understand your perspective.
Yeah, and kids, even though they're that little, because it was second grade for me, you've got people who accept you, and then you've got people who go against you. And so even at that age, it was a little bit of a challenge for me. I remember having to be, for them, they had never experienced this before either. So during, I think it was like from morning till, later on in the afternoon, I was in the class with everybody else, just participating. And then for another portion, I was in the back with one of the students who was teaching me with flashcards. So that was like my first learning. And then I remember my grandma used to love to watch TV. She loved stories, watching stories. And I remember at nighttime, he would watch I Love Lucy. And so that was our thing together. And then you could kind of, when the audience laughed, you knew it was supposed to be a joke. And I think I learned how to speak English through those medias,
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. I had significant trouble learning to speak English. You couldn't tell now, but then it just wasn't clicking, and it wasn't the primary language at home. So I get it. You had to figure it out.
Mm-hmm. And English is a kind of an interesting language, because I'm sure it's the same with you, because I've coached people from your area, and we have certain words that get attached to certain things, whereas here, four could mean number four, it could be for something, it could be four on the golf course, get out of the way of the ball. So there's always things going on. So I think that was one of the, and especially with my parents, I think it was one of the funny things where your dad goes to the restaurant and he asks for a bowl of soap.
Mm-hmm.
He wants a bad word for a fork, because he didn't get one. And they're looking at him like, what do you mean? So a lot of funny stuff as well.
So I got a funny story, and it wasn't that long ago. It was a few years ago. So we went to the movies, and this particular movie has a place that you could eat. I think this was either before or after the movie, and I said two waters, right? And the guy heard two orders, right? I was like, no, it was two waters, right? But I said it waters, right? But that's how I grew up saying it. It was, and then he came out with two orders, and then me and my wife just had a laugh, and then now I corrected it. It's two waters, right?
Gotta pronounce
some little
W.
things. You gotta pronounce it. You gotta pronounce it, correctly. So,
That's funny.
So, who was the biggest influence on you growing up?
We had a really tight-knit family. My mom's brother and sister also moved here, and then another sister moved later on who had older kids. And it was kind of funny because, my school was up here, and then my cousin lived right next to the school, and then another mile down the road was us, and then another mile up, not even a mile, 2 seconds up the road was us, and then just on the other. So we were all in like, different streets, but like the same path. And so we were together a lot, and and so it was, but I think that the whole, everybody influenced me, because everybody, especially my mom and dad, they were all of the, they all had that thread in them of entrepreneurship, of trying something new to see if it's going to work for the family. And I so appreciate them going out on a limb like that, because although life in Italy is great, there's a lot of, there's so much more freedom here than there is there. And although our political system is the way that it is, I think it's a lot easier to get things done here than it is over there. You had mentioned before about investing and buying homes and things like that, which I have done. I had my real estate license at one point, and it was a fun thing for me. But those are things that, I started my own business when I was 18. And those are things that you just, are a lot, the ground's a lot harder to break through over there because of the red tape,
Yes.
And so that's one thing that I appreciate.
No, I completely agree with you. I mean, there's, and this is what people don't fully understand. There's certain places in this country where there's no upward mobility or very challenging upward mobility, right? And in America, it really provides you the opportunity to. Now, America's not going to give it to you. You got to go work for it. You got to go build it, right? Yeah. But there is unbelievable amount of upward mobility here, and it's truly a blessing. So when I see oftentimes people, in a victim state of mind, it's very confusing to me, because it allows for this level of growth if you go work and you go make it happen. That's what America is.
And I think too, since COVID, a lot of those excuses don't really apply so much anymore. I mean, I know that there's people that are going through dire things and maybe don't have finances or whatever, but with this whole online system breaking open, right? Even for me as a coach, right? I had a big birthday this past year, and it's one of those that causes you to look at your life and see what you've done.
Yeah, happy birthday. Happy birthday, by the way.
What am I going to do with the rest of it? What are things that
exactly.
that
where
I
does
want
it go from here?
Yeah. Right? And so one of the things that came to my heart was I always wanted a degree in in some form of biblical, with some sort of a biblical background or foundation, because I wanted to add that to how I coach and have it be an availability to coach on a better, because some things just don't get healed without the word, in my opinion. So anyway,
I completely agree with you.
Yeah. And I feel that there's more tools that come with the word of God to help us get out, because there's nowhere out there that gives you hope like that and gives you peace like that, right in the middle of, for instance, me, cancer, debilitating accidents and things like that. My source was God. And so to have these opportunities to go online and not be in a classroom where I can't sit for a long period of time, or because of brain injury, I have to take things in certain increments. It was a blessing to me that all of these schools were starting online schools. And so I was able to do that online. And I feel that there's so many resources out there that if we don't find what we need, we're not looking.
Yeah, I completely agree. Especially even now with the emergence of AI, it just makes it so much easier, so much so accessible for you to, create, the vision you want, or the life that life by design that you want. If you go and you do the work, that's
exactly.
that's the secret sauce, right? And that's
how much fun would it have been for me to have a cell phone with Google Translate while the little kids were talking to me?
I know, right? For sure. Yeah, it would have helped. It would have been very helpful. Yeah, you would have known exactly what was going on, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. No, but it's emerging of the times, which I love. I love to see it, but you can't be stuck, and you can't be held back. You got to continue to push forward. You got to continue to adjust, and that's what kind of life has shown me the most. And in that adjustment, you find growth, right? So. And
when I watched, both my mom and dad were really entrepreneurs. My dad was a owner operator of his own truck. He didn't want to work for anybody. When he first came here, he joined the group of everybody that was going to work at the factory. But then after a while, it was like, I don't want to be behind closed doors, 14 hours a day with somebody telling me what to do in a toxic environment, because of the place where he lived, not just, relationally toxic, but also, physically toxic. What they were doing, and watching him, find the resources, ask for help to get his own truck, to get out there, getting whatever he could so he could pay it off quickly, so he wouldn't, be in debt to any one person or bank or whoever. I just watched him, just do these things, and they're like my little entrepreneurial immigrant heroes, As my mom Yeah, my mom went to school for what do you call it? To be a seamstress in Rome. And then eventually, once we had grown older and could take care of ourselves and whatever, she started sewing for people that needed wedding dresses or gowns or whatever. And she was very talented. So I just those are the people that I got my spirit from, you know.
Fantastic. I have a similar story. So my dad, I would just watch him, function and operate. And I just remember talking to my brother one time, and I said to him, I was like, how does he know how to do this stuff? He doesn't even know the language. Right. But that was him. He just figured things out. And we all kind of have this thing where we get whatever it is, we get really good very quickly. But we're kind of always paying attention and know that it comes in steps. And if you do it, it'll happen. Right. And similar to you, my mom is a seamstress, very talented. And I seen her, run, her business through the house, and she had this big industrial sewing machine in the corner. And after work of being a seamstress, she'll come home and then she'll do her own private projects with gowns and outfits for people. People come over and she'll measure them and be spot on. It was beautiful to watch, so, but that definitely leaves a imprint on you for being a future entrepreneur.
It does.
So all of these experiences definitely add value and create these lessons that are birthed later.
And there's hardly ever any I can'ts, because the I can'ts have to be followed with a why. And when you break down the whys, there's really no why. Because it's just, to me, it was like you weren't trying hard enough. You weren't sitting there trying to figure out, how does this puzzle piece fit in? You just kind of threw your hands up and said it wasn't gonna, and that's not to say that we're supposed to be doing everything and anything, because we all have a specific calling. But I feel that sometimes we just, and especially nowadays, I think that immigrant spirit has kind of changed a little bit, where, what I remember from my journey is my parents didn't expect things from people. They expected things of themselves. And so whatever they wanted for themselves had to come from here. Like, it's my responsibility to learn this so that I can do this. It's not somebody else's responsibility to drop it in my lap. So there's A, B, C, D in the alphabet, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I feel like a lot of people think that they can go from A, skip over everything, and get to Z. And that's not how you learn. That's not how you grow. And that's not how you, continue to breed success, because those lessons weren't learned in between.
No, I agree. It only comes from the work that you put in each and every step. So you mentioned earlier about a traumatic spinal and brain injury. I mean, could you mind walking me through, what happened there and what that looked like? What was that recovery like for you?
Well, I had just graduated from administrative school, and I wanted to kind of, with the business that I had, I thought that those skills would help me in the business. And I had gotten a temporary position as an administrator for a department in this one company. It was an international, like naval company. And so I was there for a few months. And when everything kicked in, they bought me from the agency and hired me as one of their own. I decided I was going to move and go from, because the job that I was at was like 45 minutes away from home. And this one bit of traffic, going into the city to where my job was, it was like a 9-mile stretch that on a Saturday you could do in 15 minutes. And now, during the day, it's 40 minutes just to get through that, So anyway, I decided to, get my own apartment. So I got a little studio, and I was moving to that studio and borrowed my dad's Blazer. And as I was traveling to move my things, one of the wheels fell off. Long story short, I went all over the highway, and ended up on an embankment, hit a tree, and, flipped over on the side. And that's how I got the injuries.
Oh,
And,
wow.
when they took me to the hospital, it was early in the morning because I'm a morning person. And I had to go to the bathroom so bad. And I said to the nurse, I got to go. And, God brings people into our lives and uses them in ways to help us.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that they were getting ready to release me. And my brother walked in just at the time that this doctor told me, you're good to go, get off the table. I mean, mind you, they had no x-rays done or anything like that. And
Oh, wow.
my brother happened to walk in. And just as I was getting ready to move, because I could do this and
Mm-hmm.
I'm coherent, right? But
Yeah.
I'm on
Yeah.
adrenaline. I'm on adrenaline too, right?
Correct.
So
Correct.
when I looked at him, I could see the fear in his face and looking at the fear in my face.
Oh, wow.
And being Italian, he's like, you get the heck out of here. Get somebody else in here. If my sister, I know my sister,
Oh,
and
wow.
she doesn't make that face just for nothing.
Oh,
So
wow.
tired, get out, get somebody else in here. So somebody else
Mm-hmm.
came in, and they wheeled me out and they took x-rays. And when they took the x-rays, both of the doctors came in and he apologized to me for not doing his job.
Oh,
And what they
wow.
found was that there was a break in the spine that so here's your vertebrae and here's your spinal cord, and it had
Mm-hmm.
broken like this. So it's like 1/8 of an inch from severing the spine. And if
Oh, wow.
yeah, and it was a clean break straight across. But any type of movement later we learned
Could
could have
have,
snapped it.
yeah, snapped
So
it. Yeah.
I said I had to go to the bathroom. I remember the nurse putting her hand on my shoulder and telling me, honey, you can't make any movements at all. Get up off the table, turn to the side, don't do anything because you'll be you're paralyzed for life. And any movements at all right now until we know what's going on could
Yeah.
that happen. So I was
Wow.
just okay. So but the people that were in the hospital and the people came to visit me that day, and I was like, I wasn't really feeling anything until, like my brain was all alert. I could move my body, but I was
Mm-hmm.
there. People were coming, and I remember when the shifting of the nurses, came with the change of shifts. Um, the one that was taking me through the night, she was so, I'm a planner. I like to, write things down, the order they should go in, how
Mm-hmm.
best strategy right now. I've had that since I was a kid. And later
Yep.
on in life, my dad ended up being a prevent, because when you drive in Italy, you have to practically be a mechanic because there's no AAA in the
Mm-hmm.
50s, right? You
Yeah.
have to fix the truck yourself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so he's always been a preventative person. Same thing with my mom to a certain degree, but more him from what from going back and thinking of memories of him. And so that was me. That was ingrained in me. And so how can I prevent this from happening or getting worse was always my thing. Not in a bad way, but more of I love to figure things out kind of thing. And
Correct.
so it was so neat that she took the time to say, hey, my name is so and so, and I'm going to be your nurse for the night. And then she said to me, this is what's going to happen. You're on adrenaline right now. You've been on it all day, and I'm surprised how long you've been on it based on talking to the other nurses. And so
Mm-hmm.
what I want you to think about is that this adrenaline feel is going to go away, and you're going to feel that pain, and
Yeah.
this is going to happen, and that's going to happen, and your body's going to do this and your body's going to do that. But then she said, but I'm right here. Here's the button. I'm going to put it close to your
Mm-hmm.
hand. And if you feel any of those things, just hit it and I'll come running. And
Mm-hmm.
so that was like, wow, so I know what's going to happen now. I know he's going
Mm-hmm.
to be able to take care of me. And then it was
Yeah.
just months of getting back to that, you know, thinking process, walking process. And it was a long process. It took
Mm-hmm.
quite a few months.
Mm-hmm.
And the brain thing still happens. I can look at something and get confused and have to walk away and come back.
Mm-hmm.
Just little things like that, but I'm not going to let it get me down. I never did, you know, um,
Yeah.
even with the diagnosis, the way that it was, my faith was like, okay, you're telling me that, but I don't think that that's what the word says. And I choose to go with the word, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Um,
For sure.
yeah.
Did,
So,
did you when when the accident was happening, did you see your life flash before your eyes? People describe this, with their life flash before their eyes. Did you see that?
Two things happened
Mm-hmm.
when this was happening. Like when I first started losing control and realizing that I couldn't get the control back. I'm a big music person, so there was
Mm-hmm.
this one song on the radio that was very popular back then, and it was called Kyrie, and it was like, Lord have mercy on the road that I must travel. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, oh my gosh. And after the second or third attempt of me trying to straighten the car on my own and
Mm-hmm.
realizing that I couldn't, my last thought was, oh my God, I'm going to die. And then I passed out. And when I woke up, um, same thing. I just believe that there's certain things that happen when things happen that even though they're happening, you're being protected
Yeah.
because I wasn't wearing my seatbelt.
Oh, wow.
And I'm glad that I wasn't, because when the car hit the tree, it, like, the door was caved in like this, and it would have just, you know,
Cracked you. Yeah.
Prob probably
Yeah.
probably made things worse. The other thing was there was 2 guys on an overpass just where the tree was that saw what happened, and another guy behind me, and they came right over. And when I woke up for, like, seconds, I guess I was groaning or something. They introduced themselves, and they said, "How can we help you?" And this shoulder was pinned against and I didn't know what was wrong with me, right? I just woke up
Mm-hmm.
for minutes. This was in, and I said to them, I said, what did I say to them? I said, how many of there are you? Right. And they said they then introduced themselves, we're here to help. How can we help you? And so I said, one of you put your hands here, one of you put your hands here. And so they held me up, because I think that if I had fallen off of that seat, I would have bent like this, which would have caused the spine to
Cause the
sever.
sever. Yeah, exactly.
And then
Yeah.
after that, I was back out again, and then I remember them pulling me out through the side window to get me into the ambulance very carefully, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So those are little things that I remember that, like I said, even though I didn't, but I had a lot of nightmares for a long period of time, but I
Yeah.
don't, it just went dark. There were no, um, I just basically, how people sometimes just take their hands off the wheel. That's basically what I did.
Mm-hmm.
I knew,
Yeah.
even with that song, now that I look back, the Lord was going to have mercy on the road that I was traveling,
Mm-hmm.
however he was going to do it. So,
Yeah. When I was a kid, there was several accidents, and it's glory to God that I'm really here. But this one particular story is I remember it's myself, my dad, my cousin, and maybe one other person. It might have been like 4 of us in the back, right? And we're coming from church. And I just remember my cousin, he kept putting his leg up on the back of the seat, and then we're just like, no, put your leg down or whatever. And then he put his leg down, and then he put it back up, and then now we're like fighting in the back, about his leg being up. But then just all of a sudden, it was just like my aunt was driving, and she's like, "Oh," and then the car turned, and then everything slowed down, right? And the car flipped. I don't know if I don't think we were wearing our seatbelt, but the car flipped and rolled, and then it ended up, on its side. And my cousin, because he kept putting his leg up, broke his leg, right? And my aunt, which was driving, she was pregnant, and she like lost her baby. But I just remember that when the scene was done, the car was on the side, and then someone like had jumped up like on top of the car and it opened the door, and then it was just like you're looking up, and you're just like, what happened? What did I just get hit with? So these experiences really change you, and they give you an appreciation for life that can't really describe to anybody.
mhm.
Mm-hmm. So just
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'd share that. So, one of the questions I have for you is, what are the secrets to living a purposeful life?
I think gratefulness is a big one because there, no matter what's happening, there's always something to be grateful for. And there's studies out there that, grateful minds versus ungrateful minds, people who are grateful for the little things and walk in a path of gratitude. I'm not trying to get new agey. That's my thesis for my MBA, so that and self-care of
Hmm.
ourselves,
Yeah.
whatever form of self-care that's healthy that you can introduce into your life. Um, and, building that, because those things are things that build, mental agility. And, with me having to learn about the brain and neurotransmitters and how they communicate with your body, what levels they need to be at, our vibrations, need to be at a certain level in order for disease not to come in. When I got cancer, I studied a lot on that because, when your body gets below 62 per megahertz, right? Because we're all energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, not in a hooey way, because God is
Yeah. Yeah.
light.
All
And
good. All
so,
good.
yeah, so your body just kind of, opens itself up for things to come in when you're down like that. So gratitude and taking care of yourself keeps your body at a certain level so that those things don't come in. Um, and then just remembering that there's always hope, because one of the things that puts the brain's, panties in a twist
Hmm.
is the word I can't. And
Yes.
when you look at
Yes.
something and you say I can't, your brain automatically stops, and
Hmm.
stays there until you, and then we have the hypothalamus back here in the back of our brain that listens to that you can't. And so it doesn't try to find ways that you can. And so coming back to, that's not right. I know there's a way out. And then what is that? And when you ask that to your brain, it automatically starts to look for ways to get out. And
Correct.
that's what I learned when I was sitting there in the hospital. I can't do this, but what can I do?
Hmm.
Some things took a lot of time. I
Yeah.
remember the Holy Spirit saying to me, try wiggling your toes. And it took me days before I could wiggle my toes properly. And then from there, it was like flex your foot and then turn your ankle around. So there were all of these little,
Little things. Yeah.
yeah, that were coming to get me
Hmm.
on the path to walking again. But, you know, was it perfect? No. I had a lot of years of anger because chronic pain can cause that if it's not managed properly.
Correct.
And it wasn't just the first accident that happened. There was another one where my friend and I were going to get pizza because everybody else we were with was drinking. We weren't drinkers. Nobody, we didn't want anybody driving. So while we're going to get pizza for everybody, we get hit from behind. He was driving. We were
Oh,
sitting
wow.
still. We were on a curvy road, and then that was the first one I had, that didn't do as much damage as the second one, but it's just life just kept happening. And so it got to the point where I felt like I'd have bullseye on my forehead, and where is God in all my pain? And while all of this is happening, even though I know he's taking care of me, so there was this, you know, truth lie, um, because God's not a liar. I'm not trying to say that, but the truth is this is happening. Where are you,
Hmm.
God? Your word says this. And then people saying that, um, just because of their own belief systems, not based on the word, you know, it just kind of took me in a bad place uh,
Hmm.
for a little while, you know.
Yeah,
So,
you highlight something that I do with with my kids is I don't allow them to say can't ever, like in my
mm,
house, in my presence. Don't just eliminate that from your vocabulary. And
yes,
it does instantly limit you when you say you can't, you know. Not saying that you can do everything, right? There's just our bodies are limited
right.
in the frame that we have, right? So, but you could continue to try, and it might be a different variation of it, but then it will, come to pass. So that is a great nugget and great note. And it's something that, I use with my kids, all the time.
And then looking at, I actually have a couple of free resources on my website, and one of them is, 10 vital keys to go from surviving to thriving. And
Mhm.
so, who can help you right now if you can't help yourself?
Correct.
What, who can I go to help me? What books can I read? Because back then the internet wasn't what it was, what it is right now. But what can I read? Where can I go to find information on how the brain works? How can I get myself out of this? And TBIs weren't as concussion was a big thing, but we really didn't learn about TBIs until later on in the game, as far as I'm concerned. But whatever I could learn that I could get my hands on to help me out of that situation, that's what I tried doing. you know
Hmm.
some days I was a winner and some days I
Yeah, of
wasn't.
course. I
you
mean, every
know
day is a battle.
I
Yeah.
know that on the days that I wasn't, I was still learning something,
Yeah.
instead of, because if we go into defeat, it's almost like saying I can't,
Yeah.
and that's
No, for
something
sure.
I've learned. Yeah. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me of the book I read recently, is You Are the Placebo by Joe Dispenza, right?
Oh,
And
wow.
it just talks about how, certain people were giving a placebo, but because they thought that they got this, they instantly gotten better. And then your mind has been able to kind of, produce this effect in you. And, it's so true. And reframing, reshaping the way that you think and see certain things will definitely help you. So, you're definitely on the right track there. So, how have you overcome your physical and mental limitations?
Um, I, hmm, well, I overcame them through the avenues of what I talked about before, being grateful even when I wasn't feeling grateful, taking care of myself even when, I was limited with those resources. And I just feel that I just learned along the way how to take care of myself and how to get myself out. And now those are things that I teach to other people. Um, and they were very hard lessons. And they're things that are being taught right now that weren't taught back then. And I just learned through mistakes. I
Yeah.
learned, what's working for me, what's not working for me, making those mistakes and making my life better. There's a lot of, you know, one way that I care for myself is watching my schedule and not piling too many things on at one time, because I know that that's not a good thing for me. I can, which I did over
Mhm.
the holidays, or, at
Yeah.
certain times in life, I can go like the bunny, and just
Yeah.
keep going
Exactly.
and going and going. But I'm also a big, get tasks done type of person, and I'm not going to stop until the task is done. But um I remember one day I wasn't feeling well, but I just felt in my heart I needed to make a meal for a family, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it took a lot out of me, but
Mm.
at the same time it was like I took each task and broke it up. It's like I think I made, what did I make? I made meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and because they're from the South, and so I
Yeah.
made
Yeah.
meatloaf, mashed potatoes, green beans, with bacon and all this other stuff. And
Yeah.
um, but what I did do was, you know, I sat down, like I was sitting at my counter on one of my stools, and I was mashing the potatoes,
Hmm.
that gave my back a break.
Yeah.
And so little things that you can do for yourself while you're doing the tasks, even walking away for like 10 or 15 minutes, laying down on the
Hmm.
couch, listening to music, closing my eyes so that I could refuel. It doesn't take much for me. Some days it does, some days it doesn't. But I just kind of roll with that. So I plan times for creativity, and I plan times for, creativity can't always be planned. Sometimes things can come to you, but if I don't have the energy in certain places, I'll lay down and I'll be creative. I'll do something on my computer, or if something's coming to me. But I always try to keep in check what my body is feeling, what my mind is feeling, and, you know, how can I fit what I need to do in life based on those limitations.
How do you eliminate the blind spots in your life?
Well, you have to acknowledge them first and what they are and how you get triggered by them, and knowing that they're going to happen, and putting systems in place so that you can recognize them quickly and eliminate them before they take you over. You know, that's how I
Yeah,
handle.
I typically do, I know what my strengths are and I know what my weaknesses are, and I've had to do a lot of introspective work, and I've had to work on myself, a ton. And I typically pick something, for the year, and then I kind of isolate that,
Yes.
and and then I'll dig a hole, a mile deep into, how do I improve this particular area, or also where did it originate from? This either bad habit or this thing that I learned, or am I operating through survival? Did I pick it up through survival and I carried it into my adulthood, or can I change this, thing? And then I'll isolate it, and then I'll work on it until it improves, or it's not there anymore. It's not a issue. So, those are some of the things that I do to help myself and improve. And then also too, you said acknowledge. I listen, right? How accurate is it, right? So some people, what happens is if they hear something and it's illuminating a blind spot, it naturally triggers defenses, right? And then now you feel like you're in a scrap, right? You're in a fight, right? But I listen to how accurate it is, and I ask myself, is it accurate? Oh, that's accurate. So maybe I might want to look at that, right? And I don't think everybody does that, with their blind spots. So, just trying to see, what we could be helpful and kind of helping you illuminate some of that.
When I was living up north, when we first came here, I remember that there was a lot of older homes, beautiful older homes,
Yeah.
and because winter could be pretty bad in these places, they had, the first door that you come in, you walk from the stoop, there's your door, then there was like a little tiny foyer, then another
Yep.
door, and then the house, right? And that's
Yep.
how I look at the brain. It's like
Yep.
somebody's knocking at the door, so you go to open to see what it is, but you don't let them. They're either on the stoop, or maybe because it's too cold, you let them into the foyer. But you don't let somebody into the main house unless they're supposed to be there. And
Yeah.
that's how my thoughts are. I could open it up, just like you said, to see if it's something that's valid that needs to get lit in. Then I'm going to listen a little bit more to see if it's truth or a lie. And that is what allows you to get into my house, or allows me to let you out of my house
Yeah.
without coming in, right?
Yeah.
And
No,
so I
exactly.
always,
You're right.
one day I
Yeah.
was thinking about this, and that analogy came to me, and I love it because it's just so, we get to choose who comes in or who comes out. We don't
Yeah.
have to let everyone in, you know and so that's another thing. And then when you recognize that this is happening, that this is a blind spot, then you start hopefully looking for ways to create habits to where, first recognition right away, that's not good. What can I do to replace that? Like you said, where's it coming from?
Yeah.
Is it coming from a good place or a not so good place?
Hmm.
Recognizing and then changing it. And those habits are the things that I put into place, so that, I mean, for instance, in most of my books, I talk about, well, a couple of them, but I talk about SAD, right, which is the seasonal disorder, because we don't have a lot of sunshine. And
Yeah.
so we've had a lot of cloudy days where I am right now. And I made sure that I started, taking some extra vitamin D during this time, because although I love cloudy days, because when it's always sunny, you feel like you always have to be on, um,
I'm
and
not complaining in South Florida.
yeah,
Yes,
right.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
and so you put your little blankie on, and I'm there with my pad, and because I'm working on different things, and
Yeah.
I don't want my brain to. I just use those down opportunities for me, even if I just type something that's not relevant right now, maybe, or whatever thought comes in. Not in a bad way, but if I think of something, I just want to write it down so I don't forget it later.
Yeah.
And so, remembering to take that, because of the traumatic brain injury, I may have written something and then it'll just completely come out, until I get reminded of it again. So it was like, oh yeah, sad. I need to start taking some vitamin D so that I don't fall into, a depression that could keep me under my blankie for a few more days or
Mhm.
hours, you know.
Yeah.
So that's how, for me, that's how I get rid of them.
Okay. So you've written several books. What are your books about?
The first one is about Esther. She's kind of like a heroine for me because she took an impossible situation, took time out to seek God, and found the answer that she needed, not only for herself, but for her people. And I
Yeah.
also care about, her life and her, because it's all about self-care too.
Yeah.
While she was waiting to go see the king. So being a cosmetologist and, into all of these creams, lotions, oils, whatever it is,
Yeah.
I just thought that story was always amazing. But how she saved her people. So there's two aspects there. So I took those and made them into a book and introduced some of the things that I learned through the Bible study. The second one is 31 Days to a Stable Christmas. And it's all about, like managing blind spots, managing the stresses that we come to at Christmas time that is more heightened than others, because Christmas isn't always fun for everyone. And
Correct.
if it was fun last year, there might be a chance that it may not be fun this year,
Yeah.
because of all of the family dynamics, people around you, the way they drive, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and
The-
then the third one was after my brother passed. It was, after COVID. He passed during COVID, and I just had a really hard time it's about addiction, and
Mhm.
it's about just finding your place again and recovering what was lost, because you may have lost someone in your life, but there were a lot of losses for a lot of things during COVID. Some of us lost ourselves for a while, right? Because
Yeah.
our life as we knew it was over. And
Correct.
so, it's just coming back to, or, you know, all of my books were written during COVID.
During
And
COVID.
yeah, they were experiences in life that may have happened before, but they're coming out now. And
Mhm.
that's why I say I think that, COVID brought out a lot of things in people. I choose to look at the good that it brought out instead of the bad. So
Yeah.
those are the three books that I wrote. So
So how does someone? What practices have you developed that aided you in lasting transformation?
building habits.
Building habits.
Yeah, building habits to stay steady, you know, sleep, getting up at the same time every day, making sure I worked out to the point where, there were days I didn't want to. So it was like, the first step is, well, just get up and go pee and then figure it out after that. But while already having in my home gym all of my stuff there, my sneakers, my clothes, my everything was there, so that I didn't have any excuses of, well, I got to get my sneakers and I got to get my water and I have to get this and I have to get that. And that's going to take another 20 minutes, but just always having it in place so that it's there. So I'm not creating excuses for myself to not do it. If everything's
Yeah.
already laid out for me and I'm ready to go, like if you're in sales and you don't have a plan for tomorrow,
Mhm.
you don't have a list of people to call, you're going to spend that time that you're supposed to be working preparing, instead of
Mhm.
preparing so that you could hit the ground running when you get on the phone, is going to be better for you than preparing, how they say in the South, I'm fixing to, you know.
Yes, I'm fixing to. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
exactly.
fixing to, instead of I already fixed it, I'm ready to
Yeah.
roll, let's go,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
So
basically habits, because I did it
habits.
during COVID. Everybody, to me, it was like, get up, work out,
Mhm.
bed by 10, all my stuff is ready, take a shower, put on the clean pajamas now, and,
Mhm.
kind of go through the day. Some type of structure, I think, is what we lost during
Mhm.
COVID, but
Yeah.
maintaining structure for me during COVID really helped me a lot.
Yeah, I did a habit audit, for myself, walking into 2025, and there was two habit audits that went to the top of the list. One was my calendar, scheduling everything, right? I've been getting better through the years of using a calendar versus not. But making that like one of the most important things, right? Because if you schedule it, it gets done, right?
Yeah.
If I put it on my calendar, for me, it's pretty much almost like 90 something percent chance it's gonna happen, right?
Well, it's the same
So
thing with goals. If they're
yeah,
not
same thing with
written
those.
down, all those
Mhm.
statistics of, them being written down versus not being written down, looking at them frequently as opposed not to. So there's all of those steps, to your habits that you want to do for the day. But kudos on the calendar
Yeah.
because that's a good thing.
So yes, so I'm good there. And then it was, working out. So I just started really, cranking and working out. It was actually a friend of mine that I just met up with, and I was actually talking about the podcast and launching this podcast, and why don't you join our workout group in the morning? I was like, what? He was like, yeah, we do a morning Bible study. We got to get up a little bit earlier, at 4 something instead of 5. But, at 5, we'll do a 30-minute Bible study, and then we work out for an hour. Right. And I was like, you know what? That's the accountability I need to make sure that this area is shored up. So, lo and behold, yes, I'm here at this this guys group, up at 5, and doing a Bible study and working out, right? Those are the things that you might need to marry for you to adjust your habits to hit your goals,
And look at that. You've got 2 birds, 1 stone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I also I wrote the workout thing into my calendar permanently, right? So I'm up at 5, whether I'm with those guys or not. So that's one of the things that I checked off. So, what would you say are the traits of an entrepreneur?
Willingness, I think, is the biggest trait, because people are able, but not everybody's willing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be willing to be able to make sacrifices to get you to where you want to go, and you have to be willing to pull yourself out of a pit, because pits do happen in business, right?
Correct.
So
Correct.
you can either let the dirt come on top of you, or you could fight the dirt and jump over it, right?
That's the best way to describe it. You sound like a real entrepreneur, right?
Yeah. So and one of the a helpful book that I read years ago was John Maxwell's Failing Forward,
Mm-hmm.
where it was okay to make, because my personality type for the longest time was, mistakes are failure, now you're a failure, everything's a failure, just put your pillow over your head and forget about it. And one of the things that I learned is that failure is part of the learning process that teaches
Absolutely.
you how to become better.
Correct.
And
Correct.
so,
Correct.
but if I'm not, everybody's able to be an entrepreneur. Well,
Mm-hmm.
you may be, part of an entrepreneur's process, or, whatever it is, you have a role in your life, but, everyone's able, in my opinion, but not everyone's willing to go to the top. Some are happy
Correct.
at the percent. Good for you. That's great. But being willing to take responsibility of creating a life for yourself that no one
Correct.
can take away from you.
Correct.
You know,
Correct. Correct.
and
Yeah.
even when sickness and disease comes, which it
Mm-hmm.
has for me, having the grit to pivot,
Yeah.
because if we stay stuck too long in one place, then that fear, that doubt, you're opening up yourself to, to go down a different path. And so just being willing to continue, to create that path for yourself.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. I mean, it sounds amazing. Sounds exactly like me.
Yes, it does.
You know? Yes. So, one of the questions that we always like to end with is what are your biggest lessons learned from life and in business?
It's never over, even when it looks like it's over and there's no hope. Um, Lazarus was dead for 3 days and then the Lord resurrected him, right? So my lesson there is that I could be dead. I could be not in a way that I'm not able to move, because of my
Mm-hmm.
consequences of life. But
Yeah.
there's always a way out. There's always a way to pivot. There's always a way to, you know, when I had cancer, um, it was a new reality for me, and then COVID came right on the heels of that. My dad passed away, right before I got diagnosed. And so it was like from one grief to another grief to another grief. Now we got,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
now I have a whole new business that's kind of like a stepping stone from my other business. And I'm seeing how God has taken everything in my life and just woven it through my faith in him. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the word
Yeah.
says that we're not without hope in the world.
Yeah.
So how can I hope right now to get me out?
Yeah.
You know, and so
Yeah.
there's always a place to go. Meaning,
Mm.
if we take the time to listen, we take the time to pray, we take the time to step back instead of getting in a tizzy and getting totally unhopeful. There's always a way that this ugly thing right here can turn into something beautiful. And it's during
Yeah.
those times where true change comes in
Yeah.
ourselves, in our businesses, and other things.
Yeah. I completely agree. How can people get in contact with you if they?
Everything's on my website,
Okay.
wethriveatlife.com. There's free resources there. My programs are there. My books are there. Everything is pretty much there. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you for coming on today. Thank you for sharing your story, and thank you
Thank you.
for enlightening us on how to build a more purpose-filled life. So, just wanted to thank you for.
I love your
Um,
stories.
yeah, appreciate. Yes, I have great stories. So,
Yeah.
all right. Have a good day.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Bye.